Cougars defense held the Bears to only 3 yards a carry on 50 attempts. BYU defended the pass well, holding Baylor 137 passes. Cougars quarterback Jaron Hall, 23 of 39, 261 yards and a touchdown. On the season, Hall completed or nearly 68% of his passes for 7.5 yards per pass attempt. He was accurate in their road win at USF, completing 25 of 32. Now on defense, the Cougars holding teams at 3.6 yards a carry on the ground, 5.3 per pass attempt. Now Oregon, they're 1-1. They beat Eastern Washington at home, an FCS school, 70-14. Remember, they were embarrassed in their opener, losing 49-3 to Georgia. Now, Bo Nix, a strong game against his FCS opponent, but against Georgia, 21-37, only averaging 4.7 yards per pass attempt and 2 interceptions. Really impressed with the BYU defense this season and not confident here with Nix facing a quality defensive team. Hall, experienced quarterback for the Cougars. They handle this atmosphere. The play here, BYU +4. Fresno State and USC college football pick for Saturday. Fresno State fell to 1-1 after their 35-32 home defeat to Oregon State. They lose really on a 2-yard touchdown run as time expired. Bulldogs were able to pile up 492 yards on that Beavers defense, but only 132 rushing on 29 carries. NFL prospect and quarterback for Fresno State is Jake Kaner, who went 29 of 45 for 360 yards and a touchdown with 8 yards per pass attempt. Defensively, they did allow 398 yards to Oregon State with 179 rushing on 36 carries. Oregon State threw for 219 yards on 27 attempts. USC improved to 2-0 after their 41-28 road win at Stanford. Back-to-back games here with over 500 yards of offense. USC built up that 35-14 lead at the half and scored only 6 points in the second. Trojans' run game generated 164 yards on 36 carries. Quarterback Caleb Williams hit on 27 for 341 yards and 4 touchdowns. But USC did give up 441 yards to that Cardinal offense, 221 on the ground on 45 carries. The Trojan defense did force 4 turnovers. Now, both offenses piled up over 500 yards a game with NFL prospects at quarterback on each side. USC defense still in question as Stanford's just not that strong offensively. The play here, Fresno State +12. Georgia versus South Carolina college football pick for Saturday. Georgia 2-0 after the 33-0 home win to FCS Samford. They did open the season against Oregon and pounded them 49-3 behind 571 yards of offense. Bulldogs moving the football for 525 yards, holding teams just 220. Quarterback Stetson Bennett has been accurate early on, 75% completion rate, averaging 10.3 yards per pass attempt. Running back Kendall Milton, 7.5 yards a carry. Now, South Carolina, they fell to 1-1. They lose 44-30. At an improved Arkansas team, the game really got away from them in the fourth quarter, giving up the first 14 points, which they fell behind by 19. Struggled defending the Razorbacks' run game, gave up 300 yards on 64 carries. But Spencer Rattler, the quarterback for South Carolina, he did his part, throwing for 376 yards, 24 of 39. But the run game just 40 yards on 29 carries. Rattler was impressive in his road out at Arkansas. Now, Georgia did get past South Carolina by 27 at home last season. They did give up 214 passing yards to the Gamecocks, but in 2022, the Gamecocks quarterback, it's a major upgrade in this position. For that reason, we'll take the points here. The play will be on South Carolina +24.5. Kansas and Houston college football pick Saturday. Kansas improves at 2-0 with a 55-42 road overtime win at West Virginia. Now the Jayhawks, they move the football for 420 yards in the win. Quarterback Jalen Daniels, 18 of 29, 219 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was accurate in their win against FCS Tennessee Tech. The run game generated 201 yards on 35 carries. Now Kansas defense did surrender 501 yards with 355 passing on 40 attempts. Houston fell to 1-1, another overtime game, but they lose this one 37-35. At Texas Tech. Now, 2 straight overtimes for the Cougars. Remember, they got past UTSA by 2 in the opener. Their offense posted 365 yards in the defeat. Clayton Atune was not accurate in that Texas Tech loss, going 20 of 39 for 266 yards with a touchdown and pick. They are averaging only 6.6 yards per pass attempt and 3.2 yards to carry on the ground. But Houston's at home for the first time this season. They face a soft defense here in this spot. Back-to-back road games for Kansas. The play here will be Houston -10. Miami versus Texas A&M, a college football pick for Saturday. Miami 2-0 on the season with their 30-7 home win to Southern Miss. Hurricanes moved the football for 445 yards, 177 rushing on 47 carries. Quarterback Tyler Van Dyke completing 73% of his passes for 9.9 yards per pass attempt. They did limit Southern Miss to 231 yards with only 24 yards on the ground on 23 carries. They opened with a 70-13 home win to Bethune-Cookman behind 605 yards. Texas A&M, they're 1-1 after their 17-14 home defeat to Appalachian State, gaining only 186 yards. The run game generated only 89 yards on 18 carries. Starting quarterback Haynes King, he's getting benched. Max Johnson will start at quarterback, completed 60% of his passes with 27 touchdowns and 6 picks with LSU last year. Now, the Aggies defense deserved a better fate because they held the Mountaineers to only 314 yards, 181 rushing on 52 carries, and 34 passing yards on 30 attempts. Johnson with LSU last year did throw for 306 yards and 3 touchdowns on this Aggies defense. So he's definitely an upgrade here. The play here will be Miami and Texas A&M over the total of 44.5. Mississippi State versus LSU college football pick. This one is on Saturday. Mississippi State 2-0 after their 39-17 road win to an improved Arizona team. Bulldogs moved the football for 426 yards. Quarterback Will Rogers 39 of 49 for 313 yards with 4 touchdowns and a pick. High volume passing resulted in 6.4 yards per pass attempt. They defended the run well, holding the Wildcats to 48 yards on 21 carries. Rogers had a strong performance at home to Memphis, averaging 9.2 per attempt and 450 yards. LSU 1-1 after their 65-17 home win to FCS Southern behind 550 yards. Of course, Tigers opened the year with a 24-23 loss to Superdome to Florida State. Quarterback Jaden Daniels in the loss hit on 26-35 for 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 6 yards per pass attempt. But he is definitely a rush threat. He ran the football for 114 yards in that game. It is a back-to-back road game for Mississippi State, so that makes it really a tough spot. Remember, their run game has really sputtered this season. Daniels run threat a plus for this home underdog to play here, LSU plus 2.5. Michigan State and Washington college football pick for Saturday. Michigan State is 2-0 after their 52-0 home win to Akron. Spartans gained 498 yards on the Zips with 262 passing and with 47 carries. Peyton Thorne, 18 of 28 for 212 yards, 2 touchdowns. They limit the Zips to 225 yards with 22 rushing on 27 carries. Their top receiver, Jaden Reed, is questionable here for Michigan State. Washington 2-0 with their 52-6 home win to FCS Portland State behind 617 yards. Huskies opened the season beating Kent here 45-20. They gained 525 yards in that game. Now, Indiana transfer quarterback Michael Penix completing almost 70% of his passes with 6 touchdowns, a pick, and nearly 10.5 yards per pass attempt. He showed accuracy in his first season at Indiana, but suffered 2 severe injuries. He does not run. This will be a test. This will be a test for the Spartans' passing defense, which had a poor showing last season. Of course, Thorne's accuracy is an issue here. The play here will be Washington minus the 3. Oklahoma versus Nebraska college football pick. This one's on Saturday. Oklahoma improved to 2-0. They get that 33-3 home win to Kent. They open with UTEP and win 45-13. Now, despite facing weak competitions, the Sooners have been held to under 500 yards in each of their game offensively. But the good news is the defense is holding opponents to just an average of 8 points a game. UCF transfer Dylan Gabriel has hit it on 70% of his passes with 5 touchdowns and no picks, 10.4 yards per pass attempt. The run game is generating 5.3 yards a carry against weak opponents. Sooners are stopping the run on defense, holding foes at 5.8 yards per pass attempt. Nebraska is 1-2 after the 45-42 home defeat to Georgia Southern. Head coach Scott Frost fired after the loss. They also have a neutral site loss in Northwestern, giving up 402 yards. The Cornhusker defense did allow 632 yards to Georgia Southern, a MAC school, with 409 yards passing, 233 on the ground for nearly 8 yards a carry. Nebraska defense to concern regardless of the coaching change. Brent Venables showing some good signs with the Sooners defense. The play here will be Oklahoma minus the 13. Ole Miss versus Georgia Tech college football pick. This one is on Saturday. Ole Miss 2-0 with the 59-3 home win to Central Arkansas. They did open at home to Troy. They win 28-10 behind 433 yards. USC transfer Jackson Dart really against weak competition this year, completing 67% of his passes with 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, and 8 yards per pass attempt. The run game is generating 6.2 yards a carry, and defensively they're holding teams just 2.6 yards a carry on the ground. Georgia Tech 1-1. They get a 35-17 home win to FCS Western Carolina. Didn't cover that point spread in that game. Yellow Jackets open on a neutral field. They were blown out to Clemson, losing 41-10. Only 237 yards of offense in that loss. They have lost 7 straight against FBS teams. Quarterback Jeff Sims completing only 58% of his passes, but he's averaging only 5 yards per pass attempt. Yellow Jackets offensive concern here, trying to match the scores here with Rebels. The play here, Ole Miss at -16. Penn State Auburn college football pick for Saturday. Penn State 2-0 with their 46-10 home win to Ohio behind 572 yards. The Lions opened the season on the road in a conference game, beating Purdue 35-31 on a late drive. Senior quarterback Sean Clifford, well, he's completing at 61% of his passes with 5 touchdowns. He does have a pick, but 7.7 yards per pass attempt. The Lions' run game is generating 5 yards to carry, and on defense allowing just 3.6 per rush and only 5.3 yards per pass attempt. Auburn, they improved to 2-0. They win 24-16 at home to San Jose State behind only 378 yards of offense. The Tigers defended the run well, but gave up 275 yards passing to the Spartans. LSU transfer TJ Finley completing 65% of his passes with 1 touchdown, 3 picks, 8.2 yards per pass attempt. And Auburn is rushing for 6.3 yards on the ground and 247 yards. Weak opponents for the Tigers and a bit too one-dimensional. Auburn pass defense also concerned. The play here, Penn State -3. San Diego State versus Utah college football pick. This one is on Saturday. San Diego State improved to 1-1 with their 38-7 home win to FCS Idaho State, gained 488 yards. Aztecs open up at home to Arizona. They lose 38-20 behind only 232 yards of offense, giving up 461. Virginia Tech transfer Braxton Burmeister only completing 55% of his passes, just 4.4 yards per pass attempt. He's rushed 18 times for 100 yards. Now the Aztecs are running for 6.5 yards a carry. Utah improved to 1-1 with their 73-7 home win to FCS Southern Utah behind 602 yards. Now the Utes opened with a 29-26 road defeat at Florida, giving up 440 yards with 284 on the ground on 38 carries. Utes quarterback Cameron Rising completing 69% of his passes, 216 yards with a touchdown and a pick. The Aztecs beat the Utes last year at home 33-31 in overtime, but that was with Charlie Brewer at quarterback, who gained weight to Rising, who passed for 3 touchdowns in the second half. Aztecs defense and run game can keep them in this one. The play here will be San Diego State at +21. SMU and Maryland college football pick. This one is on Saturday. SMU 2-0 with their 45-16 home win to FCS Lamar behind 453 yards. They open the season at North Texas. They win 48-10 behind 576 yards and 426 through the air. Oklahoma transfer quarterback Tanner Mordecai completing 65% of his passes with 7 touchdowns and a pick, 10 yards per pass attempt. Mustangs had defended well despite facing weak competition and allowing 3.6 yards per rush, 5.5 per pass attempt. They're allowing only 23% conversions here on third down. Maryland 2-0 after their 56-21 road win at Charlotte, gaining 619 yards and facing a backup quarterback. They opened the year with a 31-10 win against Buffalo. Terrapins quarterback Talia Tagliavoa completing 78% of his passes with 4 touchdowns and 2 picks, 10.5 yards per pass attempt. Both teams running effectively, which is an indicator that the passing games can have success in this game. But the total opened at 67.5. It's now moved to 74, so no value here on an over. But we're going to back the home team in Tagliavoa in this spot to play here. Maryland -2.5. Texas Tech, NC State college football pick for Saturday. Texas Tech improved to 2-0 with their 33-30 home overtime win to Houston. Red Raiders gained 470 yards in the win. Quarterback Donovan Smith 36-58 for 351 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 3 picks. He did run it 20 times and had a rushing touchdown. Red Raiders defense shut down the Cougars' ground attack and allowed 266 passing yards, but only 20 of 39 passing. NC State comes off the 55-3 home win to FCS Charleston Southern. They did gain 538 yards in that win. They were outgained in the opener to East Carolina. They survived 2 missed field goals late to hold on to that 21-20 road win at the Pirates. Quarterback Devin Leary was only 17 of 33 in that road win at East Carolina and averaging 6.4 yards per pass attempt. Despite their offensive issues, the Wolfpack defense has played pretty well. Red Raiders' first road game, but they're showing at home against a good program like Houston is really encouraging enough for a spread cover here. The play here will be Texas Tech plus 10. USF and Florida college football pick for Saturday. USF improved to 1-1 with their 42-20 home win to FCS Howard behind 424 yards of offense. But they did give up 418 yards with 250 passing on 37 attempts and over 4 yards per rush attempt in the loss at home to BYU. The Bulls defense they got crushed, giving up 576 yards with 335 rushing and 50 points. Baylor transfer quarterback Gary Bohannon completing 58% of his throws this season with no touchdowns and 2 picks. Florida, they fought a 1-1 after their 26-16 home defeat to Kentucky. Gators offense sputtered only 279 yards in defeat. Disappointing performance by quarterback Anthony Richardson, who hit on 14 of 35 for 143 yards and 2 interceptions. Both teams getting production from their ground game, but USF defense has been poor. Bulls converting only 25% on third down, and Bohannon has not been sharp. It'll be tougher to run and pass on against this Gators defense. The play here, USF and Florida, under 60 points. UTSA and Texas college football pick. This one is on Saturday. UTSA 1-1 with their 41-38 road overtime win at Army. Roadrunners gained 443 yards on the Black Knights with 154 rushing on 35 carries. Quarterback Frank Harris, 32 of 45, 359 yards and 3 touchdowns. On the season, Harris is completing 68% of his throws with 6 touchdowns and a pick with 7.9 yards per pass attempt. He did give up 485 yards to Army and 304 passing on 18 attempts. They opened with a 2-point home defeat to Houston behind 441 yards. Now Texas State fell to 1-1 with their 20-19 home defeat to Alabama. Longhorns put up 371 yards, but the run game just 79 yards on 33 carries. Quarterback Hudson Card, 14 of 22 for 158 yards. Starting quarterback Quinn Ewers out 4 to 5 weeks with a collarbone injury. Longhorns held the Crimson Tides at 379 yards, 161 rushing on 24 carries. Pass defense surrendered only 213 yards on 39 attempts. Now UTSA's pass defense is a concern, but the offense is clicking. Tough back-to-back game for the Longhorns after a physical battle with Alabama the week prior. The play here will be, in this one, UTSA and Texas to go over a total of 59 points. Western Kentucky and Indiana college football pick for Saturday. Western Kentucky 2-0 after their 49-17 win at a rebuilding Hawaii team. They opened the season winning but not covering as a 32.5-point favorite at home to Austin Peay. The run game for the Hilltoppers generating just 4.1 yards per carry. This is against weak competition. Third down conversions, 28%. Very concerning, again, based on the teams they're playing. Quarterback Austin Reed hitting on 64% of his throws with 7 touchdowns and 2 picks, averaging 8.5 yards per pass attempt. They have only outgained their opponents by 50 yards this season. Now, Indiana, they're 2-0, 35-22 home win to FCS Idaho. They got past Illinois by 3 in their opener. Missouri transfer Connor Bazelak has not been accurate, just completing 54% of his passes with 3 touchdowns and 2 picks, only 6.5 yards per pass attempt. Hoosiers running for 4.5 yards a carry. But they've defended the run well. Strength of competition weak here for the Hilltoppers. And third down, the concern since the run game has not been good. The play here will be Indiana minus 6.5. California versus Notre Dame, a college football pick for Saturday. California 2-0. They get the 20-14 home win to UNLV. Golden Bears did post 370 yards of offense in the win against an improved UNLV team, but they had their struggles running the football. They did limit the Rebels to 309 yards, only 103 yards rushing for 3 yards a carry, just over 3 yards per attempt. Purdue transfer Jake Plummer, 28 of 39 for 278 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Past 2 seasons at Purdue, Plummer, high completion rate. Notre Dame, they're 0-2, a 26-21 home defeat to Marshall. Fine Irish offense gains only 351 yards, and they ran for only 130 yards on 37 carries. So that run game, that offense has really digressed over the past several seasons for Notre Dame. The quarterback Tyler Buckner out for the season with a shoulder injury. Drew Pine gets the start and has seen limited action the past 2 seasons, completing only 20 of 39 passes. Notre Dame run game generating only 3.1 yards per rush attempt. Golden Bears holding weak competition to 5.5 yards per pass attempt and 4.3 yards to carry on the ground. but just a little more accurate and experienced quarterback on the Golden Bears side. So the play here will be on Cal at plus the 11. Liberty versus Wake Forest, college football pick for Saturday. Liberty 2-0 after their 21-14 home win to UAB. Flames posted 390 yards in the win, rushed for 188 yards and 40 carries. Now third string first string quarterback Caden Salter hit on 13 of 25 for 202 yards. He ran for 74 yards and a touchdown, but Salter is completing just 55% of his throws. Now defensively, the Flames allowed 241 yards in the game, 43 carries on the ground for 114 rushing. Flames are giving up 5.1 yards per carry on the season. Now Wake Forest, they moved to 2-2 after their 45-25 road win at Vanderbilt. The game saw the return of Sam Hartman at quarterback as he goes 18 of 27 for 300 yards, 4 touchdowns with 11 yards per attempt. In their road win, the Demon Deacons held the Commodores to 294 yards. They did open up play with a 44-10 home win to FCS VMI. Quarterback for a play for Liberty, the major concern, Brewer with the injury and the second string ineffective. So we're at a third string quarterback in this spot. We'll take Wake Forest minus 16. Louisiana Tech versus Clemson, college football pick. This one here is on Saturday. Louisiana Tech sits at 1-1 with the 52-17 home win to Stephen F. Austin. They're an FCS school. The Bulldogs gained just 515 yards in the win. They opened the season at Missouri losing 52-24, giving up 558 yards, 437 through the air. Now, La Tech couldn't run on the Tigers, but did throw for 336 yards. Quarterback Parker McNeil saw a time against Missouri, 7 of 11 for 142 yards, 2 touchdowns, of battled accuracy issues against Stephen F. Austin, completing just under 48%. Clemson 1-1 after their home win to FCS Furman on 4 days rest. After it was 31-12 after beating Georgia Tech 41-10 on Labor Day Monday. They put up 378 yards on Georgia Tech, 376 yards on Furman with short rest. The ground game producing only 3.9 yards a carry. Quarterback DJ Ogagale completing 68% of his passes for an improved 7.5 yards per pass attempt with 3 touchdowns and a pick. Tigers defense holding opponents to just 3 yards per rush, 5.6 per pass attempt. Louisiana Tech defense allowing 5.5 yards per carry on the season as Missouri gobbled up 323 rushing yards. A high spread, but the 52 the Bulldogs allowed at Missouri. The concern, the play here, Clemson minus 33.5. North Texas versus UNLV, college football pick for Saturday. North Texas 2-1 after their 59-27 home win to FCS Texas Southern. Now in FBS competition, the Mean Green beats UTEP by 18. They lose to SMU at home by 38. Quarterback Austin Ani still battling accuracy issues, hitting just 52% of his passes. But the Mean Green run game is rushing for 242 yards and 5.4 yards a carry. And they also did run effectively against SMU. UNLV 1-1. They lose on the road 20-14 at Cal. The Rebels really struggled on the ground in defeat. Defensively, they limited the Golden Bears on the ground, but allowed 278 passing yards. Doug Brumfield hit on 18 of 33 last week for 206 yards with a touchdown and a pick. Though his accuracy was poor in his first 2 seasons with the team, playing sparingly. The Mean Green has a road win this year at UTEP behind 399 yards. Now, behind the effectiveness of the run game, we'll side here with the road underdog. The play here will be North Texas at plus 3.5. Ohio versus Iowa State, college football pick for Saturday. Ohio fell to 1-1 with their 46-10 road defeat at Penn State. The Bobcats gained only 267 yards in defeat. Defensively, the Bobcats surrendered 562 yards to the Nittany Lions with 234 rushing on 34 carries. Ohio gave up 338 yards passing with 42 attempts. Now, Bobcats quarterback Curtis Rourke, just 14 of 30 for 119 yards, only 4 yards per attempt. They did beat FAU 41-38 in the opener, but defensively gave 474 yards, 364 in the passing game. Now, Iowa State, they're 2-0. They get that 10-7 win against their rival Iowa at home. Huge defensive effort by the Cyclones, holding the Hawkeyes just 150 yards. Quarterback Hunter Deckers is completing 72% of his passes with 5 touchdowns, 3 picks, 6.9 yards per pass attempt. It's just tough to back, tough back-to-back, I should say, on the road here for the Bobcats in this spot. their poor defense is a concern. Back-to-back tough opponents here for Ohio is what I'm referring to. And it's the Ohio Bobcat defense the concern. The player will be Iowa State minus 17.5. Old Dominion versus Virginia, college football pick for Saturday. Old Dominion 1-1 after the 39-21 road defeat at East Carolina. The Monarchs defense was crushed for 531 yards, 261 on the ground, 270 through the air. Monarchs struggled with their run. Quarterback Hayden Wolf hit on 18 of 29 for 275 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. For Virginia, they fell to 1-1 with a 24-3 road defeat at Illinois. Cavaliers gained only 249 yards in defeat. They got a pretty good senior quarterback here, Brendan Armstrong. A forgettable performance, just 13 of 32, 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. But Armstrong faces a softer defense and will get help from his run game as the Monarchs are allowing nearly 5 yards a carry this season. The play here will be on Virginia minus 10. Pittsburgh and Western Michigan college football pick. This one goes off on Saturday. Pittsburgh fell to 1-1 with a 34-27 home defeat in overtime to Tennessee. Panthers moved the football for 416 yards of defeat. Team rushed for 142 yards on 38 carries. Quarterback Keaton Slovis left the field in the first half with an upper body injury. He's questionable here. Backup Nick Patty was injured, so a fourth string could be under center in this one. The Panthers defense did hold the Volunteers to 91 yards on 35 carries, but surrendered 325 passing yards. Western Michigan is 1-1 after their 37-30 road win at Ball State. Broncos were able to gain 437 yards in the win, having a good game on the ground with 207 yards rushing, 43 carries. Quarterback Jack Salopek, 25 of 43, 230 yards, a touchdown and a pick. He is completing 58% of his passes, only 5.4 yards per pass attempt. With the Panthers' injuries at quarterback, expect Pittsburgh to be run heavy here. Broncos allowing 5.6 yards per carry on the ground this season. Pittsburgh runs and defends in this spot. The play here, Pittsburgh minus 10. Purdue versus Syracuse college football pick. This one goes off on Saturday. Purdue 1-1 with their 56 home win to FCS Indiana State. Now they opened the season losing at home, a tough one to Penn State, 35-31. They did gain 426 yards, but they allowed that late touchdown drive at the end to Penn State in defeat. Quarterback Aiden O'Connell hitting 60% of his passes, 5 touchdowns, no picks, 5. And Syracuse, well, the Orange is 2-0. They come off a 48-14 road win at UConn. They move the football for 465 yards. They held the Huskies just 202 yards. Syracuse opened at home to Louisville. They win that one 31-7. Now, quarterback Garrett Schrader, after a bad showing in 2021, has really improved his game. He's completing 79% of his throws with 5 touchdowns and no picks, averaging about 11 yards per pass attempt. He is a run threat and has 3 rushing touchdowns and 119 yards. Really one of the quarterbacks that's really showing improvement this year. These are 2 offenses getting good quarterback work and putting up points. Now, Purdue's defense a concern in their loss at home to Penn State. The play here will be Purdue and Syracuse to go over a total of 58.5. Rutgers versus Temple college football pick for Saturday. Rutgers moves to 2-0 with their 66-7 home win to FCS Wagner. They opened their season with a 22-21 road win at Boston College behind 322 yards. Scarlet Knights defense playing well, holding opponents at 231 yards, 0.9 yards per rush, and 6.5 yards per pass attempt. Scarlet Knights have been rotating quarterbacks. Starting quarterback Noah Vedral has an undisclosed injury and hasn't played. Scarlet Knights running about twice as much as they're passing now, as it generates 5.4 yards per rush attempt. Temple moved to 1-1. They get the 30-14 home win to FCS Lafayette. Remember, they were shut out at Duke in their opener behind only 179 yards. Alice quarterback DeJuan Mathis completing only 48% of his throws, a really poor 4.3 yards per pass attempt. And Temple's only averaging 3.1 yards per rush. Temple is going to struggle offensively here with the Scarlet Knights, a run-heavy team. I think it's going to cause a low-scoring game here with this combination. The play here, Rutgers and Temple under 44.5 points. South Alabama versus UCLA college football pick. This one here is going off on Saturday. Now, South Alabama, they moved to 2-0 with their 38-24 road win at Central Michigan. They pull off the upset. They opened the season beating FCS Nicholls State 48-7 behind 508 yards. South Alabama rolled up 502 yards on that Chippewa's defense in the win. Toledo transfer Carter Bradley is completing 64% of his passes with 6 touchdowns and a pick for 8.9 yards per pass attempt. He threw for 354 yards in the win against Central Michigan on 26 of 41 with 3 touchdowns and a pick. They did give up 348 yards to the Chippewas with 267 passing. UCLA, they moved to 2-0 with the 45-7 home win to FCS Alcorn State. In their opener, it was a 45-17 home win to Bowling Green behind 626 yards of offense. Quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson questionable with that undisclosed injury. Of course, his backup is Ethan Garbers, who played well, 17 of 22 for 223 yards with a touchdown and pick. He did see action in the win against Bowling Green, going 3 of 4 for 59 yards and a touchdown. Now, Bruins are running for nearly 6 yards a carry. These are two offenses averaging over 500 yards a game behind a good quarterback play. There used to be a system there with teams averaging over 500, which is just a blind overplay. We're not going blind on it, but we've kind of handicapped the quarterbacks here. We're going to go at South Alabama and UCLA over 59. Texas State versus Baylor, college football pick. This one's Saturday. Texas State 1-1 after a 41-12 home win to a rebuilding FIU team. They did open the season beating a rebuilding Nevada team on the road 38-14 behind just 277 yards. Lane Hatcher hit on 15 of 30 last week for 226 yards and 3 touchdowns. The running back Calvin Hill, 37 carries on the season, averaging 5.5 yards a rush. But the pass protection is an issue for the Bobcats. Give up an average of 3 sacks per game, give up negative 30 yards on sack yardage to the opponents, and they're averaging 3 turnovers a game, so those are issues. The sack yardage really is making their run game look bad. Bobcats defensively allowing 293 yards a game on defense with 3 yards per rush attempt. Quarterback Lane Hatcher completing 60% of his throws for 6.3 yards per pass attempt, 5 touchdowns and 3 picks. Now, Baylor, they're 1-1. They come off a 26-20 hard luck road defeat at BYU. Offense really struggled in this game, just 291 yards, and the run game, 154 yards on 50 carries, just 3 yards a carry. A poor showing for quarterback Blake Shapen, who went 18 of 28 for 137 yards and a touchdown. Bears were penalized 14 times for 117 yards. Now, the Baylor defense held the Cougars just 83 rushing yards on 33 carries, but 283 yards in through the air. The Bobcats, they're inexperienced on the defensive line. They're going to struggle scoring and defending Baylor here. Bears have covered 6 straight when they've allowed 14 or fewer points the past 2 seasons. I think this is one of the games here where Texas State could be held to under 14. The play here will be on Baylor minus 30. Toledo versus Ohio State. College football pick. This one is on Saturday. Toledo 2-0 with their 55-10 home win to UMass behind 411 yards. They beat FCS LSU in their opener 37-0. Quarterback DeQuan Finn completed only 12 of 26 in the win for 177 yards and a touchdown. A dual threat quarterback that has averaged 69 yards a game rushing. He completed just 57% of his throws last season. Now, the Rockets defense gave up 183 yards, but it's really against 2 weak opponents. Ohio State 2-1 after their 45-12 home win to Arkansas State. They rolled up 538 yards in the win. C.J. Stroud 16 of 24 for 351 yards and 4 touchdowns. Stroud completing 69% of his throws, 10 yards per pass attempt. Of course, the Buckeyes held Notre Dame to 253 yards and 10 points. But the Fighting Irish, they have to look to be a really down team this season. But Finn's lack of accuracy a concern here. But got to respect Toledo, what they've done defensively this season. It's held up even against weak opponents. So the play here will be Toledo and Ohio State under 62.5. Troy versus Appalachian State. College football pick. This one is on Saturday. Troy improves to 1-1, a 38-17 home win to FCS Alabama A&M after a 7-3 lead at the half. The Trojans outscored the Bulldogs 31-14 in the second. They did open the season at Ole Miss. They covered in a loss 28-10, holding the Rebels to 7 points in the second half and by containing their passing game, but they did allow over 6 yards to carry on the ground. There's experience at quarterback for the Trojans here in Gunnar Watson, who went 34 of 47 for 275 yards with a touchdown and a pick against the Ole Miss. Now, App State comes off a 17-14 road win at Texas A&M after giving up 63 points and 567 yards to the Tar Heels the week prior. In the Mountaineers here in the win held the Aggies to only 187 yards. Now, App State ran for under 4 yards a carry on Texas A&M, and quarterback Chase Bryce 15 of 30 for 134 yards and a touchdown. Bryce did throw for 361 yards and 6 touchdowns and 1 pick against a bad defensive team in North Carolina. But been impressed with the Trojans' defensive performance at Ole Miss, and Gunnar Watson is a quality quarterback to play here. Troy plus the 12.5. Tulane versus Kansas State. College football pick. This one Saturday. Tulane 2-0 with a 52 home win to FCS Alcorn State behind 558 yards. They opened the season beating UMass at home 42-10. Quarterback Michael Pratt struggled with accuracy the past 2 seasons. He's put up good numbers against the weak competition. Tulane 2-10 last season, bring back 18 starters from a bad team. Kansas State 2-0 with their 40-12 home win to Missouri. Wildcats had a strong rushing attack in the win, 235 yards on 43 carries. Nebraska transfer Adrian Martinez went only 9 of 20 for 20 yards. Did contribute to 52 rushing yards and a touchdown. Really strong performance by the Wildcats defense here, allowing 222 yards. Now Kansas State rushing for 6.2 yards to carry on the season, holding opponents to 3.5. So the play here will be on Kansas State here at -15. UCF FAU college football pick Saturday. UCF falls to 1-1. They lose 20-14 at home to Louisville. Golden Knights only 339 yards in the loss. They didn't run the ball well. 208 yards on 38 carries. Poor performance for UCF quarterback John Plumlee. 16 of 34, 131 yards, but only 3.9 yards per pass attempt. Golden Knights defense has played well, holding teams to just 256 yards, 3.3 yards per rush, 4.8 per pass attempt. Teams converting only 20% on third down on UCF. Now FAU, they improved to 2-1 after their 42-9 home win to FCS Southeast Louisiana behind 631 yards. Once a really defensive-minded team for Taggart, the Owls have become more offensive behind Miami transfer quarterback N'Kosi Perry. Signal caller is completing 62% of his throws with 9 touchdowns, 2 picks, and 9.4 yards per pass attempt. His accuracy and downfield average greatly improved at FAU. The loss came on the road at Ohio 41-38, allowing 476 yards, 346 in the passing game. Just not confident laying these many points here on the road here with UCF with the development of Perry. The play here, FAU plus 8.5. UM Monroe and Alabama college football pick for Saturday. UM Monroe 1-1 with their 35-7 home win to FCS Nichols State. They opened at Texas and were blown out 52-10 behind only 259 yards. Really sputtering on the ground. Warhawks quarterback Chandler Rogers, 14 of 19 on Texas with interception and only 5.7 yards per pass attempt. Had a really good showing against their FCS opponent, though. Now, Alabama 2-0 after their 2019 road win in Texas. They crushed Utah State at home 55-0 in their opener behind 559 yards. Now, the Clemson tied at 374 yards in that win, running for 161 on 24 carries. Bryce Young, 27 of 39 for 213 yards and a touchdown against the Longhorns. Now, he had 5 touchdown passes on Utah State. Warhawks are going to struggle here to get points on the board here. Expect the Crimson Tide to really get a big lead and bleed clock in the second half and run the clock. The play here, UM Monroe and Alabama under 60.5. Vanderbilt versus Northern Illinois college football pick for Saturday. Vanderbilt's 2-1 after their 45-25 home defeat to Wake Forest, who got their starting quarterback back. Now the Commodores' 2 wins came against FCS Elon and a rebuilding Hawaii team. Commodores could gain only 294 yards on that Demon Deacons defense. Quarterback Mike White hit on only 8 of 15 passes, 85 yards, and an interception. Northern Illinois, they fall to 1-1, a 38-35 road defeat at Tulsa. Huskies gained 375 yards on that goal of Hurricane. Michigan State transfer Rocky Lombardi is completing 60% of his passes with 8.5 yards per pass attempt. He has battled accuracy issues the past 2 seasons. Huskies limited Tulsa on the ground, but allowed 322 yards passing. Northern Illinois really struggled getting separation from their FCS opponent, Eastern Illinois, in their opener, winning 34-27, giving up 441 yards. And also the concern is for the Huskies' defense and quarterback play against this SEC team. The play here will be on Vanderbilt. The Vanderbilt Commodores here at plus 2.5. UTEP versus New Mexico college football pick. This one here is on Saturday. UTEP improves at 1-2 after their 20-13 home win in New Mexico State. The Miners were only able to move the football for 307 yards. The run game generated 141 yards on 29 carries. Quarterback Gavin Hardison, he's battling accuracy issues this season. He went 13 of 27, 166 yards and a touchdown. He completed only 44% on 48 attempts against North Texas. They did give up 202 rushing yards to the Aggies on 40 carries, but only 111 passing on 25 attempts. They opened the season with losses at home to North Texas and at Oklahoma. New Mexico, they're 1-1 after their 31-14 defeat to Boise State. Dreadful offensive performance, just 123 yards, 69 yards coming from one passing play. The run game generated only 25 yards on 27 carries. Quarterback Miles Kendrick, 9 of 28, 98 yards and a touchdown. He was accurate in the win against FCS, in their win against their FCS opponent. Lobos limited Boise State to 318 yards and only 180 through the air. Lobos playing the better defense of the two. The play here will be New Mexico here at plus the 2.5. Nevada and Iowa college football pick for Saturday. Nevada falls to 2-1 with their 55-41 home defeat to FCS incarnate Word. They had played 3 weak opponents to start the season. Wolfpack defense was shredded defensively, allowing 623 yards. This is a rebuilding Wolfpack team that saw their head coach in many transfer over to Colorado State. Oklahoma State transfer quarterback Shane Ingsworth sat out the loss to Incarnate Word. They went with Nate Cox, who went 22 of 43 for 302 yards and 2 touchdowns. Iowa falls to 1-1 with a 10-7 home defeat to Iowa State. The offense has been lacking for the Hawkeyes, just 166 yards on South Dakota State, 150 on Iowa State, all at home. Quarterback Sam Petrus completing only 45% of his passes, no touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and he's only averaging 3.9 yards per pass attempt. Iowa defense has been good, holding opponents to 216 yards, 2.2 yards per rush, as well as 4.2 yards per pass attempt. Nevada went on the road to Kansas State last year with a good team. They were crushed at the line of scrimmage by the Wildcats' offensive and defensive line. With this rebuilding team, the Wolfpack will struggle with line play in this spot. Get right spot for the Hawkeyes to play here. Iowa minus 23. New Mexico State and Wisconsin college football pick Saturday. New Mexico State 0-3 after their offense generated only 313 yards in the recent loss. They averaged just 4 yards to carry on the ground, with the passing game struggling with only 111 yards. And that loss in the recent loss here, it was first-year quarterback Diego Pavia, 7 of 20 for 100 yards, 5 yards per pass attempt in that UTEP defeat. Pavia produced poor performances against both Nevada and Minnesota. Aggies were blown out. Minnesota 38-0 behind 91 yards. They were held only 12 points at home to a rebuilding Nevada team. Now Wisconsin, they fought a 1-1, a 17-14 home defeat to Washington State. Badgers couldn't score in the second half. Wisconsin 401 yards of offense in defeat. The defense limited the Cougars to 53 yards on 22 carries. Graham Mertz 18 of 31 for 227 yards with 2 touchdowns and a pick. Now he did average nearly 14 yards per pass attempt in the win against their FC opponent. The Badgers should be able to steamroll through this Aggies team. New Mexico State play at quarterback has just been very poor. The play here will be on Wisconsin minus 37.5. Louisiana versus Rice college football pick here for action on Saturday. Louisiana moves to 2-0 after their 49-21 home win to Eastern Michigan. Raging Cajuns down 14-0 at the half, outscored the Eagles 49-7 in the second half. Louisiana gained 454 yards with 144 rushing on 35 carries in that one. Chandler Fields hit on 10 of 21, though, just 141 yards, 3 touchdowns. Ben Wooldridge saw action, went 12 of 13 for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, this has been a heated quarterback battle since the summer. Raging Cajuns did smother the Eastern Michigan on the ground, just 43 yards rushing on 23 carries. They did allow 323 yards passing, but on 52 attempts. Now, Louisiana forced 5 turnovers, missed all their 5 field goal attempts. Rice, they moved to 1-1 after a 52-10 home to FCS McNeese State, gaining 491 yards. They opened against USC. They were blown out 55-14 behind 280 yards. They gave up 538. Quarterback TJ McMahon in that one was just 6 of 15 for 65 yards and 3 picks in the loss to USC. Did show better against McNeese State. The Owls quarterback play is concerned with this first-year starter. The play will be Louisiana minus 10.5. Marshall versus Bowling Green college football pick. This one goes off on Saturday. Marshall improves at 2-0 with that 26-21 road win at Notre Dame. Notre Dame Herd rushed for 50 times for 219 yards in the game. Now defensively, they limited the Fighting Irish to just 130 yards on 37 carries. Texas Tech transfer Henry Colombi completed 16 of 21 for 105 yards and a touchdown. He was an accurate passer at Texas Tech, hitting no lower than 64% over his 3 seasons at the school. On the year, Columbia completing 85% of his passes. Now, Bowling Green 0-2 after their 59-57 home overtime defeat to FCS school, Eastern Kentucky. They showed improvement moving the football after gaining 162 yards at UCLA in the opener and defeat. Defensively, the Falcons allowed 420 yards to their FCS opponent with 324 passing yards. Marshall's defense has been outstanding this year. Bowling Green giving up 534 yards a game. Bowling Green quarterback Matt McDonald rebounded with better performance at home in that UCLA loss. Remember, the temperatures was over 100 degrees. So the play here will be on Marshall and Bowling Green over 51.5. Eastern Michigan, Arizona State. College football pick. This one is on Saturday. Eastern Michigan falls to 1-1 after their 49-21 road defeat at Louisiana. Eagles blew a 14-0 halftime lead. Eastern Michigan gained 363 yards rushing for only 43 on 23 carries. Missouri and Troy transfer Taylor Powell, 32 of 51 for 320 yards with a touchdown but 3 picks. Interceptions have been an issue for Powell in his 2 previous stops. Eastern Michigan did allow 454 yards on Louisiana, 310 passing on 34 attempts. Raging Cajuns did run for over 4 yards to carry on them. Now, Arizona State, they fell to 1-1 with their 34-17 road defeat at Oklahoma State. Those Sun Devils got within 20-17 early in the fourth quarter, but surrendered 14 unanswered points the rest of the way. ASU put up 364 yards of offense, 131 on the ground, 37 carries. The run game didn't do much. Florida transfer Emory Jones went 12 of 24 for 223 yards and a touchdown. Now, defensively, the Sun Devils did allow 465 yards to the Cowboys with 4 yards to carry on the ground and 268 in the passing game on 38 attempts. Back-to-back road spot here for Eastern Michigan. Both teams have conference openers next week, and Arizona State hosts Utah. ASU defense has played well, and Jones' accuracy is still an issue. Arizona State will play the ball control game, try and limit defensive plays with Utah up next. The play here will be on Eastern Michigan, Arizona State to go under total of 57 points. Charlotte versus Georgia State. College football pick. This one here is on Saturday. Charlotte fell to 0-3 with the 56-21 road defeat at Maryland. 49ers defense allowed 619 yards in the loss and have played horribly this season, allowing 41 at home to William & Mary, 43 at FAU. Quarterback Chris Reynolds is questionable, but did practice on Tuesday as Charlotte had to resort to the third-string quarterback with the backup sideline as well. Georgia State 0-2 with their 35-28 home defeat to North Carolina. They did put up 421 yards on the Tar Heels, running for 235 yards on 54 carries. Quarterback Darren Granger hit on 16 of 24, 186 yards to 3 touchdowns against UNC and rushed for 75 yards. Panthers have faced some tough competition facing South Carolina in the opener. 49ers defense bad, but the Charlotte quarterback Reynolds is experienced and really can put points on the board. The play here will be Charlotte and Georgia State to go over total of 61.5 points. Cincinnati versus Miami, Ohio. College football pick. This one on Saturday. This game will be played on a neutral field here. Now, Cincinnati 1-1. They get a 63-10 home win to FCS Kennesaw State. They open their season on the road to an improved Arkansas team, and they lose 31-24, but behind 438 yards. They're able to throw on their Razorbacks for 325 yards. Eastern Michigan transfer Ben Bryant is completing 68% of his throws, 5 touchdowns, a pick, 8.3 yards per pass attempt. Miami, they improved to 1-1. They get a 31-14 home win to FCS. Robert Morris didn't cover that game. Redhawks opened the year losing at Kentucky 37-13. Now, the starting quarterback for Miami, Ohio, Blaine Gabbert, is out for a while, so backup Avion Smith, a freshman, really has a tough test. The Bearcats showed good ability at throwing the football at Arkansas, and a freshman starting here for Miami, Ohio, a concern. The play here will be Cincinnati at minus 20.5. Colorado versus Minnesota. College football pick Saturday. Well, Colorado fell to 0-2 with the 41-10 road defeat at Air Force. Another poor offensive showing for the Falcons in defeat. For the Buffaloes in defeat, put up only 170 yards. Tennessee transfer JT Shrout 5 of 21 for 51 yards and an interception. On the season, Shrout is completing only 41% of his throws, 4.7 yards per pass attempt. Defensively, the Buffaloes surrendered 487 yards, 479 of them on the ground on 65 carries. Buffs averaged nearly 4 yards a carry on the ground. Minnesota 2-0 after their 62-10 home win to FCS Western Illinois behind 679 yards. In their opener, the Golden Gophers shut out New Mexico State 38-0. Minnesota behind quality in the backfield, a good run team averaging 5.5 yards per rush. Buffs are getting crushed defensively, giving up nearly 8 yards a carry on the ground this season. Their 2 losses. Fourth-year starting quarterback Tanner Morgan for Minnesota completing 73% of his passes for 12.5 yards per pass attempt. With the run game going, Morgan is capable of making plays downfield. Quarterback play has just been too poor for the Buffaloes here. The play here will be Minnesota minus 27.5. Colorado State and Washington State college football pick for Saturday. Colorado State falls to 0-2 after the 34-19 home defeat to Middle Tennessee State. Rams offense struggled again, just with 366 yards, with 10 yards rushing on 34 carries, 4 turnovers in defeat. Nevada transfer Clay Millen, 20 of 30 passing for 256 yards with 3 touchdowns and 2 picks. Now, Colorado State's defense surrendered 266 yards passing to the Blue Raiders. Dating back to last season, 8 straight losses for the Rams. Now, Washington State 2-0 with their 17-14 home win at Wisconsin. Cougars win despite only 253 yards gained in the game, 53 on the ground on 22 carries. Incarnate Word transfer Kyman Ward, 17 of 28 passing for 200 yards with a touchdown and 2 picks. Washington State's defense allowed 401 yards to the Badgers, forcing 3 turnovers. They only got past FCS Idaho 24-17 in their opener. Rams converting only 20% on third down, averaging 3 turnovers a game. Washington State, driven by its defense, and they're 2 are averaging 3 turnovers a game as well. The play here, Colorado State and Colorado State and Washington State to go under total of 52.5. Connecticut versus Michigan college football pick for Saturday. Connecticut is 1-2. They come off the 48-14 home defeat to Syracuse. Now, Huskies have lost both games against FBS. Their win coming only to an FCS team. UConn posted only 202 yards in the loss. Defensively, the Huskies gave up 465 yards to the Orange. Good news for the Huskies, they've contained run game, allowing just 156 rushing on 51 carries. Correct, Zion Turner, he's hitting on 57% of his passes, but only 5.3 yards per pass attempt and 4 touchdowns along with his 3 picks. Now, Michigan got past Hawaii 56-10. They rolled up 588 yards on a rebuilding Hawaii team. They blew out Colorado State at home in the opener 51-7. J.J. McCarthy in his first start, 11 of 12 passing, 229 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, Michigan built a 42-0 lead at the half against a really bad Hawaii team, but then only outscored them 14-10 in the second half. Wasn't too impressed with the reserves in last week, and for that reason, Connecticut has shown improvement, especially with their run defense. And for that reason, with that second half showing by Michigan, we'll go with UConn here at plus 47.5. Akron versus Tennessee college football pick. This one goes off on Saturday. Akron 1-1 with their 52-0 road defeat at Michigan State behind only 225 yards. Zips were held to just 22 rushing yards on 27 carries. Now, DJ Irons was injured. The Zips went to backup here. Jeff Undercuffler, who went 11 of 22 for 80 yards. Akron did surrender 498 yards to the Spartans with 262 yards rushing. Now, Tennessee, they're 2-0 after a 34-27 road overtime win at Pitt. The Vols put up 416 yards in the win. Quarterback Hendon Hooker, 27 of 42 for 325 yards, 2 touchdowns. They did give up 406 yards to the Panthers, 275 through the air. Zips defense struggling and a backup quarterback in this spot. Zips converting only 20% on third down. The play here, Tennessee minus 47.5. Arkansas State and Memphis college football pick. This one goes off on Saturday. Arkansas State fell to 1-1. They have a 45-12 road defeat to Ohio State. The Red Wolves held to 276 yards in defeat. Florida State transfer James Blackman, 20 of 34, 188 yards, 5.5 yards per pass attempt. Completed just 59% of his passes last year, set out the final 6 games of last season. Red Wolves struggled on offense last season. Now, Memphis, they're 1-1. They get the win, 37-13 on the road at Navy. They rebounded off a loss at Mississippi State with 506 yards on the midshipmen. Quarterback Seth Hennigan hit on 24-34 passing, 415 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, defensively, the Tigers are holding teams to just 3.4 yards to carry on the ground. with the Red Wolves defense allowing 18 yards per pass completion. The play here will be Memphis minus 14. Buffalo versus Coastal Carolina college football pick Saturday. Buffalo falls 0-2 with a 37-31 defeat to FCS Holy Cross. Bulls defense allowed 457 yards to their FCS opponent with 219 yards on 45 carries. Buffalo run defense giving up 5.2 yards a carry this season, and opponents averaging 9.5 yards per pass attempt. Bulls quarterback Cole Snyder completing 59% of his passes with 6.7 yards per attempt, and he's also a run threat. Coastal Carolina moves to 2-0 with their 31-27 home win to FCS Gardner-Webb. They open with a 38-28 home win to Army. Now, in their win to Gardner-Webb, the Chanticleers moved the football for only 354 yards, and they rushed for 46. Now, quarterback Grayson McCall, he is completing 72% of his passes, 10.3 yards per pass attempt. He's thrown for 6 touchdowns and a pick. Bulls defense are concerned against an experienced and accurate quarterback like McCall. The play here, Coastal Carolina minus 14.5. Georgia Southern and UAB college football pick. This one goes off on Saturday. Georgia Southern moves to 2-0 with a 45-42 road win at Nebraska. They open with a 59-7 home win to FCS Morgan State. The Eagles piled up 642 yards on the Cornhuskers offense. Buffalo transfer Kyle Van Treese, 37 of 56 passing for 409 yards, a touchdown and 2 picks. They crushed the Cornhuskers on the ground, 233 yards on 30 carries. Defensively, Georgia Southern did give up 575 yards to Nebraska with 257 rushing and 318 through the air. Now UAB, they're 1-1, a 21-14 road defeat at Liberty. They open with a 59 home win to FCS Alabama State. Now in the loss, to Liberty, UAB ran for 241 yards on 43 carries, but in the passing game, Dylan Hopkins just 10 of 15 for 114 yards. Defensively, the Blazers limited Liberty to 390 yards, but 188 rushing on 40 carries. Now, Georgia Southern has quality at the quarterback position and willing to back them here based on their offensive showing, and UAB showing very